Dear listeners, a new day and a new story to discuss. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that interests me. Listen and write down what you think about this situation. I'm interested in your opinions. I remember that evening like it was etched in stone. The sky was a tapestry of fiery orange and deep blues, a kind of beautiful that felt mocking given the turmoil brewing inside me. I was sitting on the old, creaky porch swing, the one Emily and I picked out during one of our happier times. It groaned under my weight, a soft, familiar sound that used to bring comfort. Now, it just felt like another piece of a life that was slipping away from me. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a sharp reminder that the world was still moving, uncaring of my personal apocalypse. I glanced at the screen. No name, just a number I didn't recognize. Hello? I answered, my voice more a question than a greeting. Jack? It's me, Emily, came the hesitant reply, her voice a ghost from a past I was trying to forget. I felt my heart skip a beat, then start pounding against my chest like it wanted out. Emily? Where the hell are you? The words tumbled out, laced with a cocktail of anger and worry I didn't want to acknowledge. I'm back in town. Can we talk? Her voice cracked, sounding small and lost. I stood up from the swing, my movements rigid. Talk? After 3 months of silence? You disappear, leave me and the kids wondering if you're even alive, and now you want to talk. The anger was boiling over, a seething, living thing. Jack, please. I know I've made mistakes, but I need to see you. I need to explain. There was a desperation in her tone that tugged at something in me, despite my best efforts to stay angry. Fine, I snapped. My grip on the phone so tight I was half afraid I'd crush it. Where are you? At the old diner. You know, where we first met. Her words were a whisper, but they hit me like a sledgehammer. That diner was our place, a capsule of all our firsts. It felt like a sacrilege that she would choose it for this. I hung up the phone without another word, my mind a stormy sea of emotions. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to let her stew in whatever mess she'd gotten herself into. But another part, a part one wasn't proud of, needed to see her, to look into her eyes and demand answers. The drive to the diner was a blur. My hands were steady on the wheel, but inside I was shaking. The neon sign of the diner flickered in the gathering dusk, a beacon in the mundane landscape of our small town. I saw her as soon as I walked in, sitting in our old booth by the window. Time hadn't changed her much. Her hair was still the same shade of chestnut, her eyes still that piercing blue that had drawn me in all those years ago. She looked up as I approached, her eyes widening slightly, a mix of fear and something else, regret. Maybe? Jack. She stood up, her voice a mere breath. Don't, Emily. Just sit down and talk. I slid into the booth across from her, my heart pounding a rapid tattoo in my chest. She nodded, biting her lip, a nervous habit she had when she was stressed. I don't even know where to start, she began, her hands fidgeting with the edge of the tablecloth. Try the beginning, I said, my voice colder than I intended. Why did you leave? Emily took a deep breath, her eyes meeting mine. I lost myself, Jack. I lost who I was, and I panicked. I thought I needed time away to figure things out. And you couldn't do that here? With your family? I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. It wasn't about you, or the kids, she rushed to explain. It was me. I was drowning, Jack. Drowning in a life I didn't recognize anymore. So you just left? Left us wondering if you were alive or dead. The words were like shards of glass in my mouth. I know it was wrong. I can't change that. But I'm back now, and I want to make things right. Her eyes were pleading, searching my face for any sign of forgiveness. I leaned back in the booth, feeling a million miles away from this woman who used to be my everything. I don't know if there's anything left to make right, Emily. She reached across the table, her hand hovering in the air like she wanted to touch me but was afraid. Please, Jack. I know I don't deserve it, but I need a chance to explain, to make you understand. I looked at her hand, then at her face. The face of the woman I loved, the mother of my children. The face of the woman who had broken us. Start talking then, I said, my voice a mere whisper, my world teetering on the edge of a precipice I wasn't sure I was ready to face. The diner's fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a harsh glow over the booth where we sat, worlds apart yet only inches away. Emily's eyes, once a source of warmth, now flickered with a turmoil that mirrored the storm raging in my own heart. The waitress, sensing the tension, gave us a wide berth, her usual cheery demeanor dimmed. I broke the silence, my voice a low growl. So, explain. Make me understand why you tore our world apart. Emily inhaled sharply, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup, a small island of normalcy in the sea of chaos. It started about a year ago, she began, her voice trembling. I was feeling lost, Jack. Lost in the routine, in the life we built. I know it sounds selfish, and it is, but I felt like I was disappearing into this role of wife and mother, and I didn't know who I was anymore. I clenched my fists under the table. So, you decided the solution was to just abandon us? To leave your kids wondering where their mother was? It wasn't that simple, Jack. Her voice broke, a crack in the facade. I started questioning everything, doubting our life, our love. I was suffocating. Suffocating? In a life we built together? I couldn't hide the incredulity in my voice. In a home filled with love and laughter? Emily nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. I know it doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me either. But I felt trapped, like I was drowning. And then, I met someone. Those words hit me like a physical blow. I recoiled, my heart pounding a frenzied beat. You met someone? She hurried to explain. It wasn't physical, Jack. It was just someone who listened to me, who understood what I was going through. He was going through a divorce, and we just connected. Connected, I repeated, the word bitter in my mouth. While your husband and kids were at home, waiting for you, you were out connecting with some stranger? Emily wiped her eyes, the tears streaking her makeup. It made me realize how unhappy I was, how lost I felt. I thought I needed time away to figure things out, to find myself again. And did you? Find yourself? I asked, the sarcasm in my voice poorly masking the hurt underneath. I don't know, Jack. I'm still trying to figure it out. But I know I made a huge mistake. I hurt you, I hurt our kids. And for that, I am so sorry. Her voice was a whisper, laden with regret. Sorry doesn't cut it, Emily. I leaned forward, my emotions a whirlwind of anger, hurt, and confusion. You shattered our family. Do you have any idea what it was like to explain to our kids why mommy wasn't coming home? To hold them at night when they cried for you? I know I can't take back what I did, but I want to try to make it right. I want to be a part of their lives again. I want to be a part of your life, if you'll let me. She reached out again, her hand trembling. I stared at her hand, then slowly pulled mine away. I don't know if I can do that, Emily. I don't know if I can just let you back into our lives like nothing happened. Please, Jack. I'm not asking for everything to go back to how it was. I just want a chance to be a part of your lives again, to be a mother to our children. I'll do whatever it takes. Her eyes pleaded with me, searching for a glimmer of hope. I sat back, feeling the weight of her words, the gravity of the decision before me. The diner faded into the background, the clinking of dishes and murmur of conversations a distant echo. I'll think about it, I finally said, my voice heavy. For the kids. But I can't make any promises, Emily. She nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. Thank you, Jack. That's all I'm asking for. The waitress approached tentatively, her smile forced. Everything okay here? I looked up, the remnants of our past life staring back at me in Emily's eyes. Yeah, we're fine. I lied, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. The rest of the conversation was a blur, a dance around the elephant in the room. When it was time to leave, I stood up, feeling like I was leaving a part of myself behind in that booth. I'll be in touch, I said, not sure if it was a promise or a threat. Thank you, Jack. For listening, Emily replied, her voice a soft echo of the woman I once knew. I walked out of the diner into the cool night, the sky now a deep velvet blue, stars twinkling indifferently. I got into my car and drove off, the road stretching out before me, leading me back to a home that no longer felt whole. The day I decided to confront Emily was etched in a storm of emotions. The sun hung low, casting long shadows across the lawn that once echoed with the laughter of our children. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest, each beat a reminder of the betrayal and pain that had seeped into the walls of our once happy home. I paced the living room, the carpet worn down in the very spot where we used to sit and plan our future. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, marking the passage of time, a relentless reminder of what had been lost. I stopped and took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation that was to come. The doorbell rang, shattering the silence like a sledgehammer through glass. My hand trembled as I reached for the doorknob, the cold metal feeling like ice against my skin. I opened the door, and there she stood, Emily, looking as beautiful and as haunting as ever. Jack, she said, her voice a mix of hope and apprehension. Come in, I replied, my words clipped, a barricade against the rush of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. She stepped inside, her eyes scanning the room, lingering on every piece of furniture, every photograph, as if trying to find her place in a world she had abandoned. Why are you here, Emily? I asked, my voice steady but cold. I needed to see you, to explain, she started, her eyes pleading. Explain? What's there to explain? You left, you shattered our family, and now you just walk back and expecting what? Forgiveness. The words poured out of me like a dam breaking. I know I can't undo what I've done, but I need you to hear me out, she said, taking a step closer. I backed away, the space between us a chasm filled with broken promises and shattered dreams. There's nothing you can say that will change what you did. You broke us, Emily. She flinched as if my words were physical blows. I know I hurt you, and I'm sorry, Jack. More sorry than you can imagine. But there was more going on than you know. I laughed bitterly. More going on? What could possibly justify abandoning your family? Emily's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back, a show of strength or perhaps pride. I was lost, Jack. Lost in a life I didn't recognize. I needed to find myself before I could be the wife and mother you and the kids deserved. And what did you find? I asked, my voice laced with sarcasm. I found regret, Jack. Regret for leaving, for hurting you, for missing out on our children's lives. But I also found clarity. I know what I want now, and that's to be part of this family again. I shook my head, a mix of anger and sadness swirling inside me. It's not that simple, Emily. You can't just walk back in and expect everything to be the same. I don't expect that, she replied, her voice steady. I know things have changed. I've changed. But I want to try, Jack. For you, for the kids. Please. The room was silent, save for the ticking of the clock, each second a reminder of the time we had lost. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the woman I had fallen in love with, the woman who had been my partner, my confidant, my best friend. But I also saw the woman who had torn our world apart, leaving me to pick up the pieces. I need time, Emily, I said finally, the words heavy on my tongue. Time to process, to understand. I can't just let you back into our lives. It's not fair to me, and it's not fair to the kids. I understand, she replied, a single tear escaping down her cheek. I'll give you all the time you need. Just know that I'm here, and I'm not giving up on us. She turned to leave, her steps slow and heavy. As she reached the door, she stopped and looked back at me, her eyes a mirror of the love and pain that had defined our life together. Goodbye, Jack, she said softly, then stepped out into the fading light, closing the door behind her. I stood there, alone in the silence, the weight of our conversation pressing down on me. I had faced her, faced the pain and the betrayal, but the road ahead was still shrouded in uncertainty. I was left with more questions than answers, and the future of our family hung in the balance, teetering on the edge of a precipice that seemed too daunting to cross. The days following the confrontation with Emily were like walking through a fog, each step heavier than the last. The house felt larger, emptier, the silence a constant, uninvited companion. I found myself wandering from room to room, each space filled with memories, both joyous and painful. The kids noticed the change, their laughter less frequent, their smiles not quite reaching their eyes. Daddy, when is Mommy coming back? My little Sarah asked one evening, her innocent eyes searching mine for answers I didn't have. I knelt down, pulling her into a hug, feeling her small arms wrap around me. I don't know, sweetie, I said, my voice catching. Mommy's going through some things right now. But we miss her, she whispered, her words a dagger to my heart. I know, baby, I know. I held her close, wishing I could shield her from the pain, from the confusion. The doorbell rang, breaking the moment. I stood up, smoothing down Sarah's hair before heading to the door. It was my neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, his hat in his hands, a look of concern on his face. Jack, I don't mean to intrude, but I saw Emily's car parked down the street. Thought you should know, he said, his voice low. I felt a surge of emotions, a mix of hope and apprehension. Thanks, Mr. Jenkins. I appreciate it. I closed the door and stood there for a moment, trying to steady my racing heart. I needed to see her, to understand why she was here but not here. I stepped outside, the evening air cool against my skin. Down the street, I could see her car, a silent sentinel in the fading light. I walked towards it, each step a question, each breath a hope. As I approached, I saw her sitting in the driver's seat, her head resting against the steering wheel. I tapped on the window, my heart pounding in my chest. She looked up, her eyes red from crying, and opened the door. Jack, I didn't know where else to go, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Why are you sitting out here? Why not come in? I asked, my confusion evident in my tone. I can't, Jack. I can't face the kids, not after everything. I just wanted to be close, to feel like I'm still a part of this family, even if it's just from a distance. I crouched down beside the car, looking at her, really looking at her. Emily, this isn't fair to them. They need you. They miss you. I know, and it's killing me. But I don't know how to face them, how to explain why I left. You need to try, Emily. For their sake. I stood up, offering her my hand. Come inside. Talk to them. It's the least you can do. She took my hand, her grip tentative, and stepped out of the car. We walked back to the house together, a fragile truce hanging between us. As we entered, the kids ran up, their faces lighting up at the sight of their mother. Mommy, they exclaimed, their voices a chorus of joy and relief. Emily knelt down, pulling them into a hug, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, my loves. Mommy's here now. I watched them, a family torn apart and slowly stitching itself back together, one moment at a time. The road ahead was uncertain, the wounds still fresh, but in that moment, there was a glimmer of hope, a chance for healing. The night wore on, the kids eventually falling asleep in Emily's arms. We sat there in silence, the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future hanging heavily in the air. I'll do whatever it takes, Jack, Emily said finally, breaking the silence. I'll fight for this family, for us. I looked at her, the woman who had been my everything, who had broken my heart and was now trying to mend it. I hope you mean that, Emily, because it's going to take a lot to put us back together. She nodded, a determination in her eyes. I know, and I'm ready. The night deepened around us, the house once again quiet, but this time there was a sense of hope, a sense of possibility. The fallout was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, there was a light in the darkness, a path forward through the pain. The morning light seeped through the blinds, casting long shadows across the kitchen floor. It was a new day, but the air was heavy with the remnants of yesterday's emotions. The kids were still asleep, exhausted from the previous night's turmoil. I sat at the kitchen table, a mug of coffee in my hands, its warmth a small comfort against the chill of uncertainty. The sound of footsteps alerted me to Emily's presence. She entered the kitchen, a tentative figure, as if unsure of her place in this once familiar space. Morning, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Morning, I replied, not looking up from my coffee. She sat down across from me, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Jack, about last night. I cut her off, my voice firm. Emily, we need to talk about what happens next. This situation, it's not sustainable. She nodded, her eyes meeting mine. I know, and I'm ready to do whatever it takes to make things right. It's not just about making things right, I said, the words heavy on my tongue. It's about understanding why it all went wrong in the first place. We can't move forward until we do that. Emily leaned forward, her expression earnest. I've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of soul-searching. I know I made mistakes, terrible mistakes. But I've also realized that there were issues in our marriage and myself that I never addressed. Issues that led me to where I am now. I listened, the bitterness inside me giving way to a reluctant curiosity. What kind of issues? Feelings of inadequacy, of losing my identity to being just a wife and mother. I love our kids, Jack, more than anything, but I lost myself in being a mom. And in our marriage, I felt like I was always in your shadow, trying to live up to expectations I couldn't meet. I took a deep breath, her words striking a chord within me. Emily, I never wanted you to feel that way. I thought we were a team, that we supported each other. We were a team, Jack, but somewhere along the way, we stopped communicating, stopped seeing each other. And I stopped seeing myself. I leaned back in my chair, the magnitude of her words sinking in. So, where do we go from here? Emily reached across the table, her hand hesitating before resting near mine. I want to go to therapy, Jack. Not just for me, but for us. We need to rebuild, to understand each other again. And I want to start being more present, not just as a mother, but as your partner. I looked at her hand, so close to mine yet still so far. Therapy could help, I guess. But it's going to take more than just a few sessions to fix what's broken. I know, she said, her voice stronger now. And I'm committed to this, to us. I want to be the wife and mother you and the kids deserve. The room fell silent, the weight of our conversation hanging in the air. Outside, the world was waking up, the sounds of life carrying on as if nothing had changed. But inside, in this kitchen, everything had changed. I finally spoke, my voice a mix of hope and caution. Okay, Emily, let's try therapy. Let's try to understand each other again. But it's going to be a long road ahead. She nodded, a tear escaping down her cheek. I know, and I'm ready to walk it, no matter how long it takes. The kids stirred upstairs, their footsteps a reminder of the little lives depending on us. We stood up, our movements slow, deliberate. As we moved to start the day, a new chapter in our lives began to unfold, one filled with uncertainty but also a glimmer of hope. The reckoning had begun, and with it, the chance to rebuild what had been broken, to forge a new path through the wreckage of the past. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, each one bringing with it a slow, painstaking process of rebuilding. Therapy sessions became a regular part of our lives, a weekly ritual where Emily and I would sit in Dr. Martin's cozy office, the walls adorned with books and calming paintings, delving into the depths of our relationship, unearthing the hidden pains and buried resentments. One such afternoon, we sat facing each other, the familiar smell of Dr. Martin's sandalwood incense filling the room. Jack, Emily, today I want you to talk about what resolution looks like for each of you, Dr. Martin suggested, his voice calm and steady. I shifted in my seat, the leather creaking under me. Resolution. For me, it's about trust. Rebuilding the trust that was broken. I want to feel like I can depend on Emily, that she won't just leave when things get tough. Emily nodded, her hands clasped in her lap. I understand that, Jack. For me, resolution is about being seen, being heard. It's about knowing that I'm valued not just as a mother or a wife, but as me, Emily. Dr. Martin leaned forward, his hands folded. It sounds like you both want to feel secure in this relationship. Jack, you want security in knowing Emily is committed, and Emily, you want the security of being acknowledged for who you are. Yes, exactly, Emily said, glancing at me. And I get that, I added, meeting her gaze. I guess I never realized how much you felt overshadowed in our marriage. Our conversations at home began to change as well, becoming deeper, more meaningful. We started spending time together, not as parents or as husband and wife, but as Jack and Emily. We rediscovered the little things that had drawn us to each other in the first place, the shared laughs, the late-night talks, the comfort in simply being in each other's presence. One evening, as we sat on the back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, Emily turned to me. Jack, do you remember our first date here? How we talked until the stars came out. I smiled, the memory vivid in my mind. How could I forget? You wouldn't stop talking about your fascination with constellations. She laughed, a sound that warmed my heart. Guilty as charged. But you listened, Jack. You've always been a great listener. I try, I said, taking her hand in mine. And I'm trying now, Emily. Trying to understand, to be there for you in the way you need. She squeezed my hand, her eyes shining in the fading light. I see that, Jack. And I appreciate it, more than you know. I'm trying too. Trying to be more present, more involved in our lives. As we sat there, hand in hand, a sense of peace settled over me. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were on the right path. The kids noticed the change too, their laughter returning, their smiles reaching their eyes once more. Daddy, Mommy, are we a family again? Little Sarah asked one day, her eyes wide with hope. We're working on it, sweetheart, I said, pulling her into a hug. And we always will be a family, no matter what, Emily added, joining the hug. Life started to feel normal again, or at least a new kind of normal. The wounds were healing, slowly but surely. The trust was rebuilding, the connection deepening. One night, as we lay in bed, Emily turned to me, her eyes serious. Jack, I made a vow to you, to our family. I intend to keep it. I'm here for the long haul. I wrapped my arm around her, pulling her close. I'm here too, Emily. We're in this together. The resolution wasn't a moment, but a process, a journey we were taking together. It was about forgiveness, about understanding, about growing together instead of apart. As I drifted off to sleep, Emily's steady breathing a comforting rhythm in the darkness, I realized that this was what resolution looked like. It wasn't a destination, but a path we walked together, hand in hand, step by step, toward a future we were building anew.